So, this is the second step of this personal transformation series that I'm doing, which is called Manifestation. And this could be really useful or helpful because the new year is coming. So, a lot of the new year is like manifesting and envisioning. And so, I wanted to talk about that today. So the term manifestation is like really loaded, and I want to clarify or just like decide upon what I mean when I think of manifestation. And it's really entered the mainstream consciousness because you can just like go into a Target or an Urban Outfitters and there's going to be some sort of like reference to manifesting. And people are just kind of like saying this word a lot, even though I would say that I personally have tried to manifest in various ways for years. And I'm definitely falling out of that sort of term the way that it's used, but I still think it is useful and helpful in more limited context. So I'll get into a little bit more detail of what I mean. So the main idea of manifesting is that you envision something in your head and you try to really believe in it, feel it, and like embody it, and then you let it go. And then like at some point it will just happen, often without you knowing about it, and it will, it manifests. And I think this originally sort of came from like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which was applied to finances. But also there's this movie called The Secret, which was released in the 90s, I think, which takes this step even further to almost like supernatural qualities, where, not like if you can just like materialize your finances this way or like better health and cure cancer and stuff like that. Then this sort of like became law of attraction stuff, which came from The Secret. But it's this idea that you can attract the outcomes that you want by priming your mind to receive these outcomes. And then it became sort of like, this is kind of more casual content, I guess, of like subliminal messaging. Like if you listen to this video for like 3 hours a night, and it'll be like really quiet whispering in the background or something with like binaural beats, then you'll become Ariana Grande or something like that. So it became that, and then it got onto TikTok, and now everybody knows about manifesting. People have tried to apply this mindset to a variety of things, and when it comes to like the more practical stuff, like building a stronger body in the gym in like a year or something like that, people can kind of ask, like, isn't manifesting just planning and setting intentions then? And so there's also been temptations to apply it to things that can't just be set to intentions, such as like being able to grow taller or something, or trying to cure like a disease that's like generally really hard to fight off without a fuck ton of conventional medicine or something like that. There's a lot I could say about like how the current manifestation, law of attraction community are, and if I think that their methods are working or not. But this wasn't meant to be like a critique or an analysis on that community. Although I will say that I personally don't think law of attraction is as powerful as being able to do a lot of the things that some of its proponents say. But I do think it is more powerful than just the usual, like, all right, I'm going to make resolutions or set a goal and be very intentional about it. I do think it sort of straddles in the middle. So before discussing exactly what I think manifestation is, there are some primary tenets or sort of beliefs that kind of you have to walk up to get there. And so here they are. One of them is that there's this sort of viewpoint that we humans like shape our own worlds. And while we do have like the physical world as our playground, and there are some things that we just can't control in the world because we are not like omnipotent, we can control a lot in our world, especially because we process the world through our own senses and our own sort of like perception. And so you can also use your perception to shape the world back. People tend to forget that things like the government or the economy or society, even though they can seem really immutable at times, the thing is that like these are all things that humans made up, that we made up, and that we are also part of that we. Like, I am part of that we. You are part of that we. And it's also helpful to remember that, like, one person can be sort of like a tide or a ripple for lots of other people. And I say can be because I don't, like, we shouldn't think that this is guaranteed, but just to know that each of us have some power in shaping our world, even if they seem like unhelpable or immovable. Another really important part of manifesting is the narrative behind manifesting. And this is what primarily differentiates it from just like life coaching or being intentional or planning something. It's this belief that everything in the universe is connected and that there's a sort of spiritual fabric tying together your desires alongside like the scaffolds of reality. Like whatever is reflected in your life is connected to a lot of the time subconscious desires, alongside like collective unconscious desires. And so it feels more divine. It feels more purposeful than just like, oh, here's a bunch of like, oh, like we are just like meat bags born into this earth, and everything is just like atoms and molecules, and everything we do is just sort of like shifting electrons around, and you know, that's kind of that, which is a much more materialist approach. Manifesting is just much more connected to like purpose and almost like a spiritual planning where like each one of us is going through some sort of evolution of some kind. And while we ourselves may not be completely clear what that is, we are somewhat in charge of it. We are agents of our own evolution, and we are coming into who we are meant to be in this lifetime or something like that. Okay, I think I've gotten those preliminary beliefs out of the way so that we can finally move into like a working definition that I think is the working definition. So I believe that manifesting is the process of being in charge of how you develop and change, by way of being able to create in a very tangible, embodied sense what it is that you are going to change into. You're basically the blueprinter. You're basically the driver of the ship. And a lot of the times, like change and evolution is going to happen anyway, but by manifesting, you can control how it happens, how fast it happens, and also make it more fun. I also want to include that the way that I see manifesting does not necessarily involve the vision coming true. The way I see it is just like drafting, planning, really hardcore daydreaming, which sounds like it's not that important, but I do think that the capacity to dream and the capacity to sort of overcome all mental obstructions that gets in the way of even like embracing these dreams and stuff like that is extremely essential to personal transformation. Okay, so I'm going to tie this back to my process of self-transformation, because manifestation is just one step of it, you know? But basically, when you're trying to transform into something, you could absolutely just sort of let it happen to you without too much intention, and you could end up as a different person. But if you're trying to become something that you've wanted to be or something like that, it's generally pretty necessary to know what it is you're going to turn into. And after accepting where your starting point is, the natural next step is to figure out what your end point is. And this is surprisingly more complicated than it might seem. Manifesting is more than just saying, I want to have $1,000 or something like that. It's really having a deep feeling and understanding of your destination. Because if it's just something in your head that maybe bounced off of you from like somebody saying they have this goal or peer pressure or like it being trendy or something kind of more shallow than that, you're just not going to feel enough magnetism or conviction to just continue to be on this process of transformation. It's just, I mean, there's a chance that it could still happen, and I'll get to like chance and probability later because I think that's important. But you're not stacking the odds in your favor for this like transformation or change. The thing is, when it comes to manifesting or transformation, your body has to be in on the ride. Like, it needs to be like, yes, I am willing to discard what I have right now because this other thing is promising enough. And you have to do the work of selling it to yourself and your body to leave behind what's comfortable right now. You have to be like, okay, like, this is worth it. You know, it's got to be juicy enough. It's got to be like exciting enough. And for most people, that feeling of juiciness comes from the body. There are some people where it comes from like other sources, which I will also get to in a bit. But that's why this is a bit more powerful than just like, oh, I just have a goal and let me just go do that. A very common technique for manifestation, which I think is extremely effective, which is why it's so popular, is visualization. You want to basically put yourself at your endpoint and imagine like what it's going to be like. And for most people, things will come up for you. And this is where a lot of like internal work is often necessary to sort of truly align yourself with that thing that you want to do. Because a lot of the time people want things that are not even like true to themselves, and then their bodies don't really like feel convinced about it, and so they just end up wanting a lot without actually manifesting. Okay, so I have an example. So I'll take me as an example. So I'm a tattoo artist, and before I really fully embraced this, even just calling myself an artist or saying I want to be an artist, or even imagining myself as an artist, caused a lot of tension in me because it was at odds with quite a few things about the way I saw myself, aka the way that my ego was structured. And if your ego is feeling threatened by a vision of yours, you really can't move forward. So you have to figure that shit out. You have to figure out, why does my ego feel threatened by this? What is it that I'm going to lose? And how can I tell myself, hey, this is actually in support of the ego and what I want. So for me, when I was growing up in my Asian American community, being an artist, especially the visual kind, not the like play piano kind, was it was seen as like mostly a waste of time or something ornamental or not something really worth seriously developing and working on. And that is a form of trauma that was inflicted on me because that was my true self coming out and people more or less rejecting or, not really seeing that side of me. And so if I were to develop this part of myself, that sort of trauma can sort of remind me of like, hey, you're going to lose people like this, or, people won't accept you. And this is something that I'm still working on, but I know now that people do love my art. I just was quite unlucky during those first 2 decades of my life, and that this part is worthy. I also envisioned myself for being a person that people cherished, including my art, that people could understand, even just a couple people who could understand the thoughtfulness or sort of like less conventional ways in which I express myself. And that starts with this belief that I deserve it, that I am worthy of people's love, and that the things that I am bringing to the table are worth it. And this notion of deserving is an interesting one because I do think it is something that a lot of manifestation channels or influencers or whatever talk about. And it does come down to essentially self-love, not a sense of deserving of like, oh, I worked really hard, so I deserve this, but kind of just like this birthright of like, I exist and I deserve this. I'm a Leo sun, so there's a stereotype that like Leos just seem like really self-absorbed or full of themselves. But there's this also gift of being a Leo sun that's like, I understand that everybody deserves love. Everybody deserves so much attention and care. And we live in this world where attention and care is a limited resource, even though it shouldn't be. And so in terms of like deserving, it's not a conditional deserving where we have to earn for it. It's this sort of like understanding that everybody deserves like desires to be fulfilled. And I personally believe that we have desires for a reason. It's so that we can fulfill them. It's so that we can evolve. It's so that we can like continue this party that we call humanity. Manifestation is essentially a way to be in touch with what we really desire. And it's such a beautiful thing because not everyone desires the same things. And so if you desire something that's different than other people or different from your friend or something, and they just don't feel this hunger for this thing, it's really like a personalized calling to you, like not everybody gets to undertake the journey that you're going to undertake by fulfilling this desire, and vice versa with them too, right? Like I think that it's beautiful to really kind of carry out like this story that we're all being written into, and to also spectate and enjoy it. In this process of like clearing mental, emotional, and psychological blockages, so many things can pop up, and this is why I think this is more complicated than it looks. And it's not as simple as just repeating the same mantra to yourself, like, I will be rich 1,000 times. Or it's not really as simple as just wanting it hard enough. It's really more to do with like, how can I clear the way, at least for the individual level, like how can I clear the way to make this happen? Now, something that isn't talked about nearly enough when it comes to manifestation is structural analysis, and how we are not in a vacuum. Like, we exist amongst other people who have other goals and minds, and who are also manifesting things that could counter manifest the things that I'm wanting, you know? Like, if there's this billionaire who's like, I want to be a multi-billionaire and become richer and richer, that's going to really fuck up people who want a more just society. And this is something that's really not talked about enough. I also think that I have a theory about what's going on, but this is not something that is like set in stone. This is just my thoughts. The really sad truth that we live in this physical plane is that not everybody has equal manifesting ability. And, there's a couple reasons besides just like wealth, but wealth is a huge fucking factor, dude. Wealth is the sort of class that you're born into is the biggest predictor of what class you will end up in. And yes, there's like rags to riches stories, but I really don't think this is due to like a lack of manifesting ability or something like that. I do think that there is something about wealth itself that suggests like taking manifesting ability power from other people by means of exploitation. And it's just sort of the truth that we can, we don't exist in a vacuum. I think ultimately what allows our individual manifestations to happen is that they are happening in coordination with the people or communities manifestations as well. Like, they need to sort of gel together. And so I do think that there is a lot of unconscious or subconscious maneuvering that happens, I guess. And what we call privilege is in a sense like the power to manifest, the power for other people to yield to your manifestations and to help make them happen. And so I do think that societal restructuring is necessary if we want more ordinary people to have more manifesting power. The thing is, like with a lot of things in human life, things are not really like black and white. I think that when it comes to the ability to manifest something, it's more like a spectrum. And so even if you are poor and like disadvantaged in ways, it's not like you have 0% chance of doing what you're wanting to do. I do think it's probably a lot smaller than what the manifesting community would have you believe. But I also think that like focusing on what you can do and what you can change does have a bit of a snowball effect. And so, I do kind of straddle the line as to like how powerful manifesting is for like social mobility. The way that I see it is everything operates on probabilities. And so the chances of your success in manifesting something is going to depend on a lot of factors that are rooted in reality, like how much wealth you have right now, or how much support you have, like what's your support network like, or even just like your personality, like some people just they're not very visual, or they're not very intentional with like the future. They're maybe very in the now or also in the past. There's so many factors that can determine your ability to imagine a future for yourself that you can also hold in your body and make real by the details that you fill in with your own mind and imagination. I would really suggest for people who say they have like a big lofty goal for something, and if you find yourself unable to sort of transform or to like manifest that vision, to just start smaller, basically, because a small manifestation or a small goal is way better than a failed large goal that, you get really frustrated by. I think like that kind of takes away the magic of it though, right? Because a lot of people want to imagine like, being on that Sigma grind set and getting that Ferrari like within a year. But I really think that if you're going for effectiveness, there is like manifesting capital, I guess, that you have to accrue, which would make things easier in the future. All of this is really sounding like money equals manifesting power, which I think is more than half true. I do think that money is the way in which we convey how resources are going to be allocated to people, and a lot of what we want or manifest has to do with resources and like being able to do shit or like I think even trying to start like a social movement or influence politics or being able to like achieve a certain level of education, that requires resources. And so it can't really be understated that like manifesting is not quite like as equal as a lot of people may make it out to be. And the thing is, these law of attraction people or manifestation people, I think the reason why this idea of manifestation has taken off is because we are facing so much like inequality right now, in terms of wealth, and people want a way out. People want to feel like they are agents and can do something about it by kind of like lasering in on their desire for a thing. And the thing is that I think it's kind of halfway true, where, if you want something and you focus on it, then you're just more likely to get it. But I think that like there's only so much the individual can do. And if we kind of pull together like this awareness of what we want and work together to like make it happen, that is how we can actually make what we want to come true on a collective level. And I think like collective manifestation is something that should be discussed so much more often, because even the entirety of America, Manifest Destiny or whatever, right? It's so individualistic, and we see the results of it. Like, some people are able to get what they manifested, and a lot of people are not. And if you have incongruent sort of messages being sent to the universe like this, it's just like we're not actually creating the society that we want. And we should manifest not just like things for ourselves, but also things that we want to see in society, like imagining a better future together. Currently, I think because of the internet, we have such a wide lens on what the fuck is going on with our society, and we're like, holy shit, like we're really fucked up. And I think that, maybe people felt like this before in the past, before the internet, but I think humans are biased towards like the shitty parts of things, and we want to fix them, and that's kind of all we're looking at. So I think currently we're going through a self-acceptance phase where we're realizing our true nature and wanting change. But currently a lot of the change is like complaining about shit and sort of like a lot of censorship, because this is just a lot to try to accept of ourselves. And so there's also parts of the internet that are kind of like thinking about the future and what to manifest. So I am excited to experience that on a collective level. So as usual, I've gone on like 1,000 tangents, but what I'm trying to say here is that when it comes to transforming on the individual level, you should at least try to take care of that first, I do think that collective transformation can sweep you into change anyway, but especially because we live on such an individualistic society, we do have power to change ourselves, and it's important to tackle and clear away like all the stuff that's holding us back. And some of those things could also be wounds from the collective as well. But, it's also important to factor in like our limiting things, such as like our resources, and you know, dreaming is good. I'm like 27 now, and I'm at this point where I can start seeing my capacity to dream and in some way to manifest in a playful manner sort of start to dissipate, which I'm trying really hard like to fight that because we live in a world where that sort of stuff is not encouraged. And it's kind of funny because that gets taken advantage of, you know? Like, we want to dream. We want to, like, imagine being in a better world, but people can capitalize on that and start selling it to us, such as, you know, MLMs and stuff like that. And so I think it's important to take that capacity, to take that necessary function of ours into our own hands and to ask, like, what is it that I really want to dream? And not necessarily have someone just sort of pop up and tell us what our dream should be. On the note of like structural inequity and stuff like that, you know, like the people who have the most power to like bring their visions forth and stuff like that, their dreams don't involve like allowing other people to dream. And that's where I think the internet is hopefully shifting things in a way that's good, you know, because we're looking at Elon Musk and SBF and stuff like that and being like, yeah, these people fucking suck. And we can laugh at them. We can influence them at least a little bit, you know? And I hope that everybody kind of sees that, like, you know, we can manifest affecting each other. We can manifest security for all. We can manifest a better world of manifestation. So, okay, I'm going to close off with like suggested things to do for manifestation because that's like the most practical thing rather than all of this like pontificating about all these social issues that are constantly rotating in my head. But yeah. Okay, so like I mentioned before, visualization is probably one of the best and strongest exercises for manifestation, especially if you're a visual person, you know. So visualization isn't just like imagining in your head. It's also like the smells, the touch, the like the noises of what this life of yours that you want is going to feel like. And you know, if you could just picture a snapshot of you just doing something in everyday life, where everything just feels better and maybe like, you know, like something on the casual side of things because you want this to be like a sustainable thing you're imagining, that's a pretty good place to start. Another one is mantras and chanting to some degree. I do think that it's important to have it structured because you don't want to overexpose yourself to some of these mantras. The key is that you are evoking something from your brain to cling on to. Like if you're gonna say like, I will be like a rock star at work or something like that, it needs to feel electrically charged within you. Like it can't just be like something that you say from like a mechanical sense. You need to sort of like practice having it jolt your energy and move it in a certain way. I've also found when it comes to like affirmations, chanting, mantras, etc., you gotta say them. You have to say them because like if you're just listening to them, I really I'm sorry, but you're just listening to somebody else like manifesting. You're not manifesting yourself. You have to put yourself into it. You have to feel that electrical charge within yourself. And you know, if you're feeling like you have a sore throat or like if you really held back by this because it's just too much of a change for you, too much load on yourself, then sure, you can listen to it. but the point is that you got to push yourself, and that is the part that makes it difficult and actually manifesting. Another method, if you're more artistically inclined, is to put the feelings of what you're wanting into a piece of art, such as like painting what your new life would feel like, or like expressing it with like certain colors in abstract art, or writing a song about it, or, you know, just like the main point is to engage that feeling within yourself, and to really embrace it and accept it. It's just another method of the sort of steps and stuff that I was talking about before. So yeah, I think like being creative, even in just like the symbolic artistic sense, can help create like your desired outcome in real life as well. Another one that I like is basically writing what it is that you are leaving behind, things that you want to let go, and then lighting it on fire somewhere. And the more sort of sacred and ritualistic you can make this, the better it can be, because you need to clear away the stuff that is blocking you or that you don't want anymore in order to make room for the new. And if you also want to like write what it is that you want on a piece of paper and also burn that, that's totally cool too, because and I'll get to this in a second, it helps you sort of maintain a non-attachment to the outcome. And also having to write everything down helps like just focus you, which is also part of manifesting. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. You know, you could manifest with a friend. If you're not an artistic person, but maybe you're more like engineering, hands-on kind of person, like maybe drawing flow charts or diagrams is the way to go. However you do it, it just comes down to this. You need to engage with your desire. And something that is also really important here is that it needs to feel in flow, and it needs to feel like, as much as possible, anxiety-free and stress-free when thinking about the person you're trying to become. And like I mentioned in the last video, you need to adopt a sense of non-attachment, which kind of is much more complicated than you would expect. Non-attachment is something that Buddhism talks about a lot, which is why I think there's something beautiful about the process of manifestation, if it can be tied to like Buddhist things. But like the thing is that when you're attached, meaning that like, you know, your ego is needing this thing to prop it up, to strengthen yourself, there's a sort of defensiveness that occurs because now without this thing, your ego would collapse or become weakened or something. And that's also just really not a great thing, you know, to become dependent and to need to protect some outcome or some thing that is ultimately transient and needs to be discarded. It's just not very strategic. The process of self-transformation and manifestation is basically rescaffolding the ego. It is working on like what you present to the world, and inevitably it's going to involve breaking it and putting it back together so that it can change into something more evolved. And so if your ego is scared of being broken and is attached to something in the past or the present or the future, it's not going to go through the process of being broken. So that's why you got to adopt non-attachment, which is like kind of just being like accepting and understanding that things are going to be a little wonky. It's going to be broken for a bit. You're under maintenance. This is why in a lot of manifestation videos and stuff, there's like this weird sort of tightrope line that's that's brought up, where you gotta really want something, but you gotta also be able to let it go and to not care too much about the outcome. And this is genuinely a difficult thing for people to walk, because because there is something about desire and also letting go of the outcome that feels a little contradictory, you know? Doesn't desire involve some kind of attachment to the way things turn out? And so I think a way to kind of think about this is like about honoring desire rather than like, I guess, sort of needing desires to come true. Instead of seeing desire as some sort of like annoying child that you have to like feed so that it can shut up and so that you can feel better not having this thing gnaw at you, I encourage seeing desire as like a teacher or a guide or a divine kind of force within you that helps you, I guess, know what you want in life and to help you achieve happiness, and isn't necessarily like something you have to get rid of, because the thing is, you can fulfill one desire and another one is just going to pop up. Like, that's just kind of like human life, for most of us, if you're not like a practicing monk or something like that. I think daydreaming is such a wonderful way to honor desire, because it's just like a fun thing to do, and it doesn't put too much pressure on you to actually make it come true. Another way is like consumerism has a lot to do with desire. If you could like appreciate something without feeling the need to acquire it, and to kind of reflect on like why this thing is cool. I think going to museums can be a way of honoring desire. I think even just like celebrating other friends' lives, or celebrating desires that you've had and fulfilled, just celebrating that, like, your journey to getting that Xbox or whatever, could be a way to celebrate and honor desire in a more spiritual way. Okay, I think that's kind of all I had to say about manifestation. And like I was motioning to before, that is just step 2 of many when it comes to self-transformation. Because, well, if we were just like manifesting a certain event, perhaps that's like a bit simpler. But if we're talking about like actually changing and structuring the way our ego works, for a long-term like effect for that can be carried on to the rest of our lives, to our communities, to children, like that is just a much more complicated process. But yeah, this was honestly really therapeutic for me to just talk about out loud. It's just like, yeah, empowering. So yeah, thank you for listening. Okay, I've just realized that like this segment or whatever is 48 minutes long. I'm sorry. I guess like if you are one of the rare people who has watched the entire thing, extra fucking thank you to you. I hope you got something out of it. And it's just like, holy shit, this whole series I'm gonna film is gonna be like 5 or 6 hours long. Which I'm doing like for fucking free. It's just so, why am I like this? Okay, bye.